So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Germany kind of putting AfD on the terror watch list, and the idea that we should do that to reform UK in the UK. Like, it seems a bit crazy, but this is something Paul Mason was talking about the other day. This was before the local elections.
I mean, let's put some substance into this. I praise Kemi Badenoch for her insistence that she will not form a national coalition with Farage, and the reason for that is
she's saying that now. I think things will change in a couple of years. I think with Robert Jenrick looking to replace Kemi Badenoch, I can very much see some sort of alliance. An informal one, potentially, but some sort of alliance between the two.
Content of what that coalition would be. Farage is Trump's man in British politics. Farage is Putin's man in British politics.
No, he's not.
And Kemi Badenoch is...
I think I would argue he's most definitely Trump's man in British politics. The Putin thing is, I think he's more... Putin would back someone who destabilizes the normal kind of political order, which Farage does to an extent. But I wouldn't argue he's really Putin's man in the UK.
Absolutely right to do what many European politicians have done, which is to erect a firewall against the far right. That's what we should be doing. Now, the problem with Tories...
They did that in France and Germany. And,
well, look, I think they can still do it.
And they became more popular.
That's what we continue to need to do.
I think the problem is, if you make them taboo, what they're going to say is, look, which policies of ours are you against? Is it, the fact they keep talking about grooming gangs? Is it the fact they keep talking about migrant hotels? This is the stuff Farage is going to say, like, you're going to put us on the watch list for these things. It doesn't make sense. What you got to do is tackle them on the issue. Stop aping them with immigration. Stop talking about asylum seekers and talking about how, there are students on visas who are trying to claim asylum in the UK, and you're going to clamp down on that stuff. What you're doing is giving them what they want, is giving their arguments oxygen. They're going to say in a couple of years' time, you haven't dealt with it, we'll deal with it. Doing that stuff is stupid.
On my side of politics, what we need to do is find common ground with Lib Dems, Greens, and the rest.
You're not going to find it, though, because the problem with the Labour Party is a centre right party. Let's be honest now. It's not a million miles away from where David Cameron was. It's closer, in my opinion, to a David Cameron in some areas than it is to Tony Blair. So you're not going to find that much common ground with the Lib Dems because they're very pro-European, very pro-EU. You're not going to find that common ground with the Greens because they're not happy with all the construction going on. But also, I think they are trying to push anti-austerity measures. It's very confusing, the Greens. Their messaging is very is not good. Let me put it that way. They need to hire a comms person, a good one. And they need to come up with a definitive message. Get rid of the co-leader nonsense, have one person in charge, and go from there.
Form a bloc against this threat.
So you can't equate Farage with Le Pen or the AfD in Germany.
I don't see why you couldn't conflate them with Le Pen. Le Pen wanted France to leave the EU. Are Le Pen's policies are that much different from Farage's? Would you say Maloney's policies are that much different from Farage's? I would argue no.
And the problem Kemi Badenoch might well have is if it's a choice of another 4 years of a Labour government or 4 years of a Reform Conservative government, which is she really going to pick?
You tell me.
Well, I would have thought she'd go for the latter.
I can imagine a situation where the Tories don't run in certain areas of the red wall to give Farage more of a free run, just like kind of what they did, what happened in 2019, the inverse of that with, the Reform Party not running in certain areas. I can see something like that happening, or a soft alliance where, they just won't fund those candidates really. It'll be like paper candidates.
And if she said right up until the election, we won't do a deal with Reform, as long as the Conservatives get far more seats and far more votes, they would be in the driving seat. So any of the sort of slightly weird policies of Reform have.
The other thing is the Conservative Party are designed to win power by any means, and they will always keep doing that. It doesn't matter if they have to team up with Reform or whatever, they will keep doing that. And the AfD designated as a right-wing extremist organisation by Germany. So Germany's Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution has designated the AfD as a right-wing extremist organisation, citing xenophobic stances for the reason. Germany's Federal Office designated them. The office, also known as BVF, cited the AfD's xenophobic stances on ethnicity as the reason for the decision, stating the party was being discriminatory towards non-ethnic Germans. According to a statement released on Friday, the office's experts have examined whether the AfD's actions match central basic principles of the German constitution over a 3-year period. The office also looked into statements shared by AfD representatives, their broader behaviour, as well as their connections to right-wing extremist actors and groups. So it'll be interesting how this plays out, in terms of, because when you make something like that taboo, are the average German who might be an AfD supporter or kind of on the fence about it, are they going to think, maybe they do have links to these organisations, maybe they're a bit too fash, or are they going to say, well, which of their policies are fash? Is it minimizing, reducing immigration, all of that kind of stuff, making Germany more white? Which again, these things are fascist and things like that. These things are racist. Let's be honest now. But if you come up with a pledge to people and say, look, they're against these specific policies of ours, which if you believe in them, are you suddenly a fascist? I'm not seeing the logic of putting Reform on some sort of right-wing organisation list or whatever, an extremist organisation, because I don't think they've said anything that's been that extreme compared to what Conservative politicians have, or even Labour politicians had when they talked about deporting Bangladeshi people for no reason. Like what's going on there? Like John, not Reynolds, which one was it? Ashworth was looked very excited at the prospect of deporting people. So Reform, with Farage are really well at, kind of, being on the line. Farage does, his best work is he asks questions. He knows what he's doing. He's being incendiary, but he's saying, well, was the person who committed the Stockport attacks, were they a migrant? Were they an asylum seeker? We don't know the answer. And then he stokes that, and he's very good at doing that. But it's not illegal to ask questions, which is the argument he uses, and as far as I'm aware, it's not. But Paul Mason, this is the fear within the Labour Party, because Paul Mason very much is of the centre right of the party, the Starmer wing of the party. You can tell he's nervous because I think he knows Starmer doesn't have the answers, and so in politics the best way to get rid of the opposition is the old Stalin method of stopping them running. But I think it's a bad idea. Making them more taboo just doesn't make any sense, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.